But I think the most important fallout from this for her is this issue that it means the congressional investigation's not going away. Not only that, it could get expanded, and it's just always going to be sitting out there as they could go weeks without saying anything, and all of a sudden it's a 3-day distraction. Or worse, you know, they want to call it a fishing expedition, but as you know, in some fishing expeditions, they catch fish.
Ah, yes, indeed. Joining us now is my friend Andy McCarthy, former federal prosecutor, and of course, he's National Review fellow at the National Review Institute. His latest book is Faithless Execution, Building the Political Case for Obama's Impeachment. And Andy, welcome.
Good to be with you.
All right. Let me ask you right off the bat. Legally speaking, how much trouble could Hillary be in? Is this a legal issue or is this a political issue?
I think it's much more a political accountability issue, Steve, than a legal one. I mean, I think it's a mistake for those on the right who want to look at this as purely an electoral politics issue to be worried too much about whether she violated criminal laws. I think she clearly violated record-keeping laws. But that invites the kind of Clintonian parsing that we all became familiar with, much to our chagrin, in the 90s. This was really a sleazy thing to do, whether it was illegal or not, and it was blatantly against the Obama administration's own transparency regulations. So I would, if I were only interested in the politics, I'd be arguing it on that ground rather than getting too much into what laws she may have violated. And I say that as someone who wrote last week that I think she may, for what it's worth, have violated the federal embezzlement statute, which is a penal law. But I just don't think she's never going to be prosecuted for it. So the issue is how sleazy is it, and do we really want to have another 4 or 8 years of what we went through in the 90s, where we're what's the definition of is and that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, now you've written a couple of pieces on Trey Gowdy and the Benghazi committee. They've known about this for 6 months or so, right, we're told. So what the heck is going on here?
Well, Steve, this is something that we've talked about before. There's a big question in my mind about how interested the Republicans are in getting to the bottom of Benghazi. Recall that before they set up this select committee, people like me were screaming for it for as long as they're almost the 2 years since Benghazi. I guess it was about a year and a half by the time they finally convened it. The Republican leadership in Congress did not want to set up this committee. They basically were pushed into it because Judicial Watch obtained this smoking gun email that showed that they had actually, pretty rigorously prepared Susan Rice for that debacle of a bunch of appearances that she did on the Sunday shows. And at that point, Speaker Boehner finally, threw up his hands, relented, and put this committee together. But it's been, as I said in the column I wrote about it, it's been a sleepy, lethargic committee. It's done virtually nothing in 10 months.
And the fact that they for what we hear, is that they knew about this, obviously, and they were negotiating with Hillary. Can I ask you a question? Why don't they just subpoena the server? I mean, why don't they just go to her house or however a subpoena works and get the server? Would that have a record of all the emails, whether she deleted them or not?
Well, let's bear in mind here, and this is part of the reason why it's so frustrating to have a Justice Department that is so corrupt it won't look into stuff like this. Congress has no law enforcement seizure power. So they can issue subpoenas, but they can't go to your house and take stuff like the police do. Right. That's a police power that only the executive branch has. That said, they should certainly have subpoenaed, at the very least, her emails, and certainly I would have subpoenaed the server. Now, that doesn't mean that she'll produce what you subpoena, and Congress might have to hold her in contempt. And you remember how long that took with Lois Lerner. I mean, that could take eons, but at least you're on record of doing it. And I think, from Gowdy's standpoint, Chairman Gowdy, he says he's trying to run this thing like a prosecutor would run a professional investigation. Well, if the subject of your investigation includes, let's put politics aside, the State Department aside, let's just say a business and a person who's the top executive at the business.
Right.
You don't depend on the goodwill of the business to cooperate and give you the documents. You subpoena them. And with respect to if your target or someone you're a subject of your investigation is the CEO, you're also looking at the business. And remember, we're looking hard at what the State Department did here, not just Mrs. Clinton. You use your subpoena power to compel the production of evidence. So I don't understand why Gowdy, as soon as he found out there were emails, didn't act to subpoena them. And because this is about public accountability, they should have been screaming. I mean, usually you can't get between these guys and the nearest microphone. They should have been screaming about this 6 months ago.
Your columns are right on target, Andy. They should have subpoenaed and let us know. I don't know why it was a secret. Great talking to you, my friend.
Thanks, Steve.
It's Johnson News next, folks. Don't go away.